I imagine every word you utter in a moment of anger is an arrow you can't take back. I imagine how much harm you could avoid if you chose silence when everything inside you wants to shoot, when someone offends, provokes, or humiliates you. What would happen if, instead of reacting, you chose to stay silent, not out of cowardice, but out of strength? Because you know, true power lies in mastering yourself. The Stoics understood this well. In chaos, their response was silency, not from indifference, but from wisdom. Today, I'll show you why staying silent in certain situations can change your life, and how that silence can be your best defense, your strongest weapon, your greatest virtue. Before we continue, go to the comments and write, "Today, I choose silence, I am stoic." By doing so, you commit to not being a slave to your impulses and to becoming the master of yourself. Do it now and make it real. Don't miss the final lesson. It'll leave you speechless. But before we start, as always, if you find value in these videos, I encourage you to subscribe and turn on notifications to stay updated with the latest content. Let's begin. 1. During a heated argument. When you're in the middle of a heated argument, the first thing to go is control. Emotions rise like a tide. Words pile up in your throat, and you feel the urge to speak, to defend yourself, to have the last word. But speaking in the heat of the moment often brings cold consequences. We say things we don't mean, exaggerate what we think, and often cross lines we shouldn't have. Afterward, when the storm passes, we're left with the echo of our words, the regret of reacting instead of responding, and cracks in relationships that might have been important to us. The Stoics knew that a spoken word can't be taken back, that an action driven by emotion can destroy in seconds what took years to build. That's why the practice of non-reaction isn't cowardice, it's strategy. In conflict, silence is power. Silence diffuse émotionnelle escalation. When someone expects you to respond with fury and finds calm instead, they're thrown off. When tension is rising and you choose not to fuel the fire, you're taking control. It's not about suppressing what you feel, but channeling it with wisdom. There's a vast difference between reacting from impulse and responding from reflection. The one who speaks without thinking betrays themselves. The one who listens first thinks better. Listening more in an argument doesn't make you weak. It gives you a strategic advantage. While the other person overflows, your understanding. While they attack, you observe. And that, in the long run, lets you act with precision. Epictetus taught that it's not the events that disturb us, but the interpretations we give them. If someone yells at you, that doesn't mean you have to yell back. You can observe their emotion without adopting it. You can let it pass like a storm. You don't need to stop. Marcus Aurelius said the soul becomes invincible when it doesn't let external provocations define it. In an argument, winning isn't about speaking louder, having more arguments, or proving the other person wrong. Winning is keeping your peace, maintaining your dignity, not letting a fleeting situation ruin a bond or rob you of clarity. Not everything deserves an immediate response. Sometimes, the best response is a pause, a breath, a look that says, asterisk, I hear you, but you won't drag me down, asterisk. You don't have to respond in that moment. You don't have to have the last word. You don't have to prove anything. Because when you know yourself, when you trust yourself, external noise can't pull you from your center. Seneca warned that reacting on impulse is typical of those who don't know themselves. The wise, however, master their inner fire, choose when to speak, when to stay silent, and when to simply walk away. If every time someone provokes you, you respond with the same intensity, you're not choosing your behavior. You're being controlled by circumstances. But if you can pause, observe the emotion, let it pass, and then decide calmly how to act, you've achieved a form of freedom few know. Remember this: no one can push you into an emotional abyss without your consent. You can feel anger and not be its slave. You can be in the middle of an argument without becoming its prisoner. The next time you feel the urge to respond, to speak without thinking, to impose your viewpoint, breathe, listen, wait, because maybe, just maybe, the silence you choose today will be the peace you thank yourself for tomorrow. And if you decide to speak, let it be when your mind is clear, not when your ego is wounded. Let your words build, not destroy. Because, in the end, no one wins in a shooting match, but everyone wins when one chooses to act with wisdom. If ties resonates with you, write in the comments, *, today, I choose the silence that strengthens me, *, make this praise your anchor in every storm. Your mind will thank you. Your peace will too. 2. When you don't know enough. When you don't know enough, the worst thing you can do is pretend you do. Insecurity disguised as certainty is a common trap. Instead of admitting ignorance, many choose to improvise, repeat what they've heard, or offer empty opinions just to avoid looking weak. But the irony is, in trying to seem wise, they expose themselves. Pretending to know not only deceives yourself, but invites humiliation. Sooner or later, someone will notice the inconsistency, the lack of depth, the absence of real arguments, and what you tried to hide becomes obvious. The Stoics understood that wisdom begins with accepting what you don't know. Seneca put it clearly, *, no one can learn what they think they already know. *, pretending to be wise closes the door to learning. Admitting ignorance, however, is the first step to becoming someone who learns, grows, and transforms. Listening doesn't make you ignorant. It makes you a learner in a conversation. The one who listens most is the one who gains the most. While others talk for the sake of talking, you're absorbing, connecting ideas, understanding perspectives. There's a quiet intelligence in someone who doesn't interrupt, who doesn't feel the need to opine on everything. That person doesn't need to prove anything. And precisely because of that, they often inspire the most respect. In a society where everyone wants to speak, silence becomes revolutionary. Questions are worth more than empty opinions. Asking shows interest, humility, and a genuine desire to understand. A good question can open more doors than 100 poorly formed answers. The wise mind doesn't need to adorn itself with empty words. It prefers the emptiness of silence over the noise of ego. Epictetus taught that if someone speaks about what they don't know, they betray themselves, because true knowledge isn't shown by talking, but by living in alignment with the truth one recognizes. Silence shows humility and respect, not just toward others but toward truth itself. Knowing when to stay silent when you have nothing to contribute is an undervalued form of wisdom, but those who practice it are eventually seen as reliable, upright, authentic, because someone who isn't afraid to admit what they don't know rarely lies about what they do. There are moments when staying silent isn't cowardice but courage. It takes more strength to hold back an unfounded opinion than to shoot a false certainty. The ego craves attention, superiority, impressing others. But the wise soul seeks to learn, not impress, to grow, not dominate. Imagine being in a conversation about a complex topic. Everyone's opining, contradicting, debating passionately. You don't know the subject, but instead of pretending, you choose to listen, ask questions, mentally note what resonates with you. And when you speak, you do so from clarity, not pressure. That attititd says more about you than any rushed opinion, because it shows you value truth over your image. Marcus Aurelius wrote that a calm soul doesn't need to defend itself at every moment. Sometimes, the greatest act of intelligence is knowing when to stay silent and let knowledge arrive before trying to share it. You don't need to know everything no one does, but you do need the courage to admit it, the humility to listen, and the willingness to learn. Pretending is easy but barren. Learning is slow but transformative. The next time you feel pressure to opine, ask yourself if you truly know what you're talking about. If the answer is allow yourself to stay silent, not to fade away, but to prepare, because the one who listens today will speak with wisdom tomorrow. And when they do, they won't need to raise their voice to be heard. If you're ready to grow through silence, write in the comments, *today, I choose to learn before impressing, *. Let this phrase be your shield against ego and your compass toward truth. 3. When someone just needs to vent. When someone just needs to vent, the wisest thing you can do is listen, not advise, not correct, not seek immediate solutions. Just listen. Not every pain needs to be resolved right away. Not every wound needs a quick fix. Sometimes, all a person needs is a safe space to release what's inside. And that space isn't built with words but with presence. You don't need to fix what hasn't been asked to be fixed. The urge to give advice or say you should often comes more from our discomfort with others' suffering than a true desire to help. It's hard to see someone cry, to hear their anger, sadness, or confusion. We want to step in, bring order, offer solutions, but often that intervention doesn't soothe it, invalidates. Unintentionally, we send the message that what the other person feels isn't enough, that they need to change it, fix it, overcome it. But that's not true. The Stoics knew that virtue lies not in controlling others, but in knowing how to accompany without imposing. Sometimes, your presence is more valuable than your words. Being there, silent, available, is a profound act of love. When someone opens up to you, they're not looking for an expertise. They're looking for a human. Someone who won't tell them what to do, but will give them permission to feel. Someone who isn't uncomfortable with their pain but respects it. In those moments, your look, your gesture, your willingness speak louder than any advice. Interrupting disrupts the other person's emotional process. Even with the best intentions, every time you interrupt to opine, correct, or minimize, you're diverting the energy they need to unburden themselves. Speaking is a form of healing, and someone who listens well heals more than someone who tries to fix everything. Epictetus said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, to listen twice as much as we speak." In a world where everyone wants to say something, listening with attention has become rare. But it's that rarity that strengthens bonds. Genuine. Listening builds deep relationships because you're telling the other person, what you feel matters to me, and I don't need to change it to be with you. In that simple act, You create connection, show real empathy. And sometimes, that's all someone needs to start healing. Imagine coming home after a tough day. You don't want advice, solutions, or to hear asterisk, calm down, it'll pass. Asterisk. You just want someone to listen, to look at you without judgment, to let you unburden. How much would you value that person who, instead of interrupting, simply stays by your side and listens attentively? How much more would you trust them afterward? That's the kind of bond you can build when you stop speaking on impulse and start listening with intention. Marcus Aurelius advised, observing before acting, understanding before intervening. Because often, what we think is help is just distraction in disguise. If, instead of rushing to speak, you take the time to look at the other person with compassion, you'll see their process doesn't need shortcuts. It needs space, respect. Listening is one of the humblest acts we can offer. It requires pausing our ego, our desire to be useful, to be right, to be seen as wise. It demands we be present without taking center stage. But what's built from that place is far stronger than any advice. The next time someone comes to you to share their pain, make a conscious effort to listen without interrupting. Don't fill the silence. Don't rush to respond. Just be there. Support. Because that moment isn't about you, it's about them. If you're ready to create that safe space for someone else, write in the comments, asterisk today. I choose to listen with an open heart. Asterisk. Let your silence be a refuge, not an absence. Your attention, your medicine. 4. When facing an authority figure. When facing an authority figure, every word counts. Not out of fear, but out of emotional intelligence. In those moments, non-verbal language, tone, and especially silence carry more weight than we realize. Many fall into the trap of talking too much, to prove their worth, to seem confident, or to fill the awkward space hierarchy can create. But talking too much can come across as disrespectful, convey anxiety, insecurity, or worse, a lack of judgment. The Stoics knew that self-control begins with what you choose not to say, because not every thought needs to be voiced, and not every opinion needs to be shared. True self-mastery is revealed in the ability to restrain the impulse, to stand out through noise. In contexts with a figure of power, silence isn't submission, it's control and professionalism. It's not about being invisible or weak, but knowing when it's the right time to speak and when it isn't. People with true presence don't need to impose themselves with words. They're felt even when silent. They stand out precisely because of how selective they are with their input. Because when they speak, it's worth hearing. Listening attentively makes you stand out. In a world where everyone competes to talk, someone who listens with presence shines by contrast. Listening isn't passivity, it's strategy. It lets you understand the context, read between the lines, and notice what others overlook. In a conversation with an authority figure, the one who listens first grasps the terrain better. The one who observes carefully knows with greater clarity when to intervene intelligently. Marcus Aurelius said a calm mind sees things as they are. And to have a calm mind, you need to know how to stay silent. Listening isn't just a sign of respect for the other person, but for yourself. It shows you know you don't need to fill every space to prove your worth, that you trust your ability to understand first and act later. Power doesn't always lie in the one who speaks most. Often, the one who speaks most reveals more than they should, showing their cards, their gaps, their need for validation. In contrast, someone who uses strategic silence projects solidity, composure, and focus. That person leaves space for others to speak, and, in doing so, gains perspective. It's no coincidence that the most respected leaders aren't the loudest, but the most balanced. The ones who speak when necessary, and when they do, everyone listens. Imagine being in an important meeting. Others rush to opine, to stand out, to show what they know. You choose to listen, take mental notes, observe the dynamics, and when the right moment comes, you contribute something brief, clear, and precise. Not only was it more effective, but your input carries more weight, because it comes from reflection, not urgency. Epictetus taught that we can't control what others think of us, but we can control what we choose to show, and showing prudence, composure, and attention in the presence of authority is a mark of wisdom. You don't need to dominate the conversation to be influential. Sometimes it's enough to master yourself. The next time you're facing a figure of power, don't seek to impress, seek to understand. Don't rush to prove your worth with words. Show it with your attitude, your presence, your ability to restrain yourself when everyone else feels the need to speak, because true respect isn't demanded, it's conveyed. And someone who knows how to wield silence earns the respect of those who hear it. If you're ready to let your presence speak louder than your words, write in the comments, *today, I choose the power of conscious silence, *, let your self-control be your strongest card, and your listening, your greatest advantage. 5. When someone provokes you, when someone provokes you, their first goal is to pull you from your center. They want to see your reaction, your loss of composure, your need to respond, and that's the trap. Because reacting is losing control. It's giving your peace to someone who least deserves it. It's showing your emotions are in someone else's hands. It might feel justified, even necessary. To answer, defend yourself. Make it clear you won't stay silent. But responding from a wound isn't courage. It's poorly managed vulnerability. The Stoics knew this well. The one who reacts is a slave to their ego. The one who chooses not to is their own master. In the face of provocation, silence is a form of emotional mastery, not to avoid conflict, but to show you don't need to stoop to the other's level. Staying silent isn't always weakness. Sometimes it's the greatest show of strength, because it means you recognize the game and choose not to play. It means you don't need to return the blow, because you know it hasn't truly touched you. A provocation only has power if you give it importance. Not responding is refusing to give power to the other. It's like closing the door on a thief coming to steal your calm. If you don't open it, they can't enter. If you don't engage in their game, they lose control. They expected a battle and found a wall. Epictetus said, "It's not what's said to you that harms you, but the value you give those words. If you choose to ignore the poison, it stops being poison. It becomes air, background noise." Marcus Aurelius put it clearly, if something external disturbs you, it's not the thing itself that affects you, but your judgment of it, and that you can change right now. What does this mean? True freedom lies in your internal response, not your external reaction. If every time someone offends you, you respond with the same energy, you're in their hands. You're easy to manipulate, easy to unsettle. But if you can look at that provocation with distance, if you can stand firm without needing to speak, you've won without even moving. Your dignity doesn't need verbal defense. You don't have to prove your worth to someone trying to take it with words. True dignity is upheld in serene silence, in a clear conscience, in knowing that nothing said to you changes who you are. You can hear it all and absorb nothing. You can look with compassion at the one attacking you and keep walking, because you understand that someone who provokes speaks more of their chaos than your worth. Imagine a discussion where someone tries to humiliate, provoke, or unsettle you. You could respond, yell, defend yourself, or you could stay silent, look steadily, breathe deeply, and let the provocation die on its own, not from indifference, but from wisdom, because you know entering the battle only validates the attack, but your silence disarms it, exposes it, turns it into what it really is, a futile attempt to steal your balance. Seneca said the best revenge is to not resemble the one who harmed you, and that includes not speaking like them, not stooping like them, not losing reason like them. Silence in those moments is a statement. Asterisk, I'm not here to fight. I'm here to keep my peace. Asterisk, the next time someone tries to provoke you, remember, you don't need to prove anything. You don't need to respond. Your worth isn't in your ability to hurt back, but in your power to choose silence when everyone expects a shoot. Not because you don't feel, but because you know it doesn't define you. If you're ready to protect your dignity with serenity, write in the comments, asterisk, today, I choose not to react. My silence is my power. Asterisk, make every provocation a chance to prove to yourself, provos, that you're the one in charge of your life. 6. When asked for an opinion that could hurt. When asked for an opinion that could hurt, you're at a crossroads. Say what you think without a filter, or choose wisely how, when, and if it's worth saying at all. Many confuse sincerity with brutality, as if truth always has to be thrown out carelessly, as if hurting is a fair price for authenticity. But the reality is different. Sometimes, truth without tact is cruelty. It's not about lying or sugarcoating reality, but understanding that how you say something can make the difference between helping and harming. The Stoics taught that virtue lies not just in what's said, but in how it's said. Speaking with prudence is a form of compassion. Saying a truth that destroys doesn't make you honest. It makes you insensitive. Not every opinion is necessary. Just because you have an idea or judgment doesn't mean you must share it. The right question isn't just, asterisk, is what I'm going to say true, asterisk, but also, asterisk, is it helpful? Is it timely? Will it bring something good to the listener? Asterisk. If the answer is number, perhaps the wisest choice is to stay silent, because a word unspoken never harms. But one launched without awareness can leave wounds that last years. Thinking before speaking prevents regrets. It's easy to get carried away by the impulse to be clear, direct, authentic. But later, when you see the other person's expression, when you understand the impact of your words, that's when regret hits. Marcus Aurelius said we should act so that, looking back, we can be at peace with our choices. And that applies to language too. Not every thought needs to become sound. The pause between thought and word is where wisdom lives. Epictetus reminded us we were given reason to reflect before speaking, not to justify everything we say without thinking. Sometimes, what someone needs isn't a raw opinion but understanding. They don't want to be corrected, they want to be heard. And if they ask for your perspective, they're not expecting a verdict but guidance, a compassionate view. That's where empathy plays a key role. You can say what you think without destroying. You can be honest without hurting. But you can also choose silence, because silence is a form of respect too. When you choose not to say what could needlessly hurt, You're showing self-control, sensitivity, emotional wisdom, not out of fear, but awareness. There are moments when your silence conveys more consideration than 1,000 well-crafted sentences. Imagine someone trusts you enough to ask your opinion on something delicate, life choice, a project, a personal matter. You have something critical to say, but you know it might hurt. You have 3 options. Say it unfiltered, soften it with empathy, or stay silent if you know it won't contribute anything positive. Choosing well isn't manipulation, it's care. Caring for the other person, but also caring for the relationship, because an opinion, if thrown like a knife, can cut deeper than the truth itself. Seneca said a word, once spoken, can't be undone. So, every time you open your mouth, ask yourself if what you're about to say serves the other or just your ego. Does it seek to enlighten or merely point out? Do you want your opinion to contribute or just be a release? Because truth spoken with ego isn't virtue, but truth spoken with love can be medicine. The next time someone asks for an opinion you know could hurt, don't respond immediately. Breathe, think, evaluate. If you choose to speak, do so with heart as much as reason. And if you choose to stay silent, do so with the serenity of someone who knows that sometimes the deepest respect is shown by not speaking. If you're ready to use your words with wisdom, write in the comments, *today, I choose to think before speaking. My silence can also be an act of love. Let your voice build and your silence protect. 7. When learning from someone. When you're learning from someone, your best tool isn't your voice, it's your silence. In a world where everyone wants to be heard, someone who truly wants to grow must learn to listen. Not just hear, but be present, attentive, receptive. Because every word you interrupt is a lesson you let slip by. Every sentence you interject to show what you already know is a chance you miss to learn something new. Interrupting interferes with your learning. It not only cuts the teacher's thread, but fragments your ability to understand. When you speak while the other is teaching, you're not participating, you're competing for attention. And someone competing to speak rarely gains wisdom. The Stoics knew the mind needs stillness to comprehend. You can't absorb knowledge if you're focused on responding, opening, or correcting. Pauses are opportunities to understand more. What seems like an uncomfortable silence is often the space your mind needs to process what's just been said. Those pauses are part of learning. They're the breath of understanding. If you fill them with words, you choke them. If you respect them, they nourish you. Listening attentively shows discipline. It's not passivity, it's self-mastery. It's the conscious act of saying, my opinion can wait, my learning can't. When someone shares their knowledge with you, they're offering something valuably, not just information, but experience. That deserves to be received with respect. Listening without interrupting isn't being submissive, it's being wise. Because you recognize that in that moment, the focus isn't you, but the teaching. And you know your turn to speak will come. But now your task is to absorb. Marcus Aurelius said, "There's no greater sign of intelligence than learning in silence." You don't need to stand out in every conversation. You need to leave every conversation with something new inside you. Silence creates space to absorb knowledge. A noisy mind doesn't learn, it only compares. A calm mind listens, reflects, integrates. When you stay silent to listen, you're cultivating the humility of someone who knows they can always improve. And that humility will move you forward faster than any clever phrase. Imagine being in front of someone who knows more than you, who's lived what you're just starting to understand. You can try to prove you're on their level, or you can sit, look them in the eyes, and absorb every word like it's gold. The latter transforms you. The former only feeds your ego. Epictetus taught that the wise person's first step is recognizing what they don't know, and there's no better way to do that than through conscious silence. A silence that doesn't seek to impress but to internalize. That doesn't aim to be noticed but to be useful. Learning requires willingness, and that willingness is first shown in how you listen. The next time someone shares their wisdom with you, resist the urge to interrupt, to share your version, to fill the space. Stay with the silence, stay with the pause, because that's where true learning lies. You don't just learn what the other says. You learn to restrain yourself, to value, to respect the moment, and that's part of knowledge too. Seneca said, "Wisdom doesn't shout. It reveals itself to those who know how to wait. So wait, listen, and you'll see how what once seemed simple now gains depth." If you're ready to learn with an open heart and a calm mind, write in the comments, *today. I choose the silence that transforms me, *. Let your attention be your greatest discipline, and your silence your best teacher. 8. During a negotiation. When you're in a negotiation, every word you say is a card on the table, and sometimes the best move is not to show it yet. Many believe speaking first gives them control, but in reality, the one who speaks first loses the advantage. They reveal their position, urgency, or need too soon, and in that moment, the balance shifts, because the one who rushes to fill the silence shows more than they should. In contrast, the one who knows how to wait, who masters the pause, holds the power. The Stoics understood the value of self-control, especially when something important is at stake. Not giving in to the impulse to speak is already a form of silent negotiation. Silence unsettles, and that discomfort pushes the other to say more than necessary, to explain, justify, reveal. In a negotiation, the one who doesn't fear silence has the advantage, because they know that, while the other seeks to fill the void, they can observe, read histories, spot inconsistencias. Silence forces the other to yield without you asking, not because you said something, but because you said nothing, and that, in a power game, is more intimidating than any argument. Epictetus said that someone who masters their impulses is truly free, and that includes the impulse to speak too soon, to rush the close, to avoid tension. In that space of waiting, true intentions are revealed. Listening attentively, patiently, without interrupting, lets you see beyond the words. It lets you notice if what's offered is genuine, or if there's fear, anxiety, or manipulation behind it. Pauses don't just hold silence, they hold information. They hold power. A well-placed pause can be worth more than 1,000 words, because it can shift the conversation's course, make the other doubt, make them think you know more than you do, or give them time to reveal something they didn't intend to say. Marcus Aurelius reminded us that someone who masters the present moment doesn't need haste, and that's exactly what's needed in a negotiation. Presence, calm, strategy. Imagine a tense situation. The other side presents an offer, waiting for your reaction. Your whole body wants to speak, respond, argue, but instead, you choose silence. You hold it, and in that pause, the other starts talking again, justifying, offering more. You did nothing, just waited. And that waiting, which seems passive, was your biggest move. Seneca said, patience is a form of strength, and in negotiation, that strength shows when you don't need to fill every second with words to feel you're advancing. Sometimes, progress lies in knowing not to move too soon, because true control belongs to the one who knows when not to act. Not everything is negotiated by speaking. Some concessions are won with a look, a gesture, a prolonged pause. The one who doesn't fear silence shows confidence. The one who listens more than they speak gathers more information than they give. And with information, you win. The next time you're in a negotiation, resist the urge to speak first, to fill the silence, to show all your cards. Breathe, observe, wait, because often the one who yields first does so because they couldn't handle the void you knew how to hold. If you're ready to negotiate with intelligence and composure, write in the comments, *today. I choose the power of strategic silence. Let your pause be your strength, and your listening your secret advantage. 9. When the atmosphere is already charged. When the atmosphere is already charged, every word counts more than usual. Tension is palpable. Gestures are sharper. Emotions are raw. In those moments, speaking without thinking isn't courage. It's recklessness, because adding words is like pouring gasoline on a fire. What could have calmed with time spirals out of control. With one extra praise, a poorly chosen word, a misplaced irony, a truth misused, and everything explodes. The Stoics knew this well. In the midst of chaos, the best response is often none, because when the environment is burning, what's needed isn't more sparks but water. And sometimes, staying silent is a way to pacify. Not from submission, but from wisdom. The one who stays silent at the right moment doesn't surrender. They restrain themselves. They don't avoid conflict out of fear, but delay it out of intelligence, knowing that what's said in anger today will be regretted with guilt tomorrow. What's responded to from a wound rarely builds. It only wounds more. Silence conveys calm amid chaos, not because it negates the problem, but because it slows the impulse to make it worse. Someone who chooses not to speak when everything is burning changes the energy of the space. They become an anchor, a necessary pause, a reminder that sanity can still return. In a tense conversation, a family argument, a moment where everyone wants to be right, the one who stays silent shows they don't need to impose themselves to be present. They choose peace over protagonism, harmony over ego. Epictetus taught that you can't control what others say or do, but you can control your response. And sometimes, the best response is to give none, because in the space you leave empty, there's restraint, clarity, mastery. Waiting for the right moment is a virtue. It's not avoiding, it's preparing. It's not ignoring, it's choosing the moment. When your words can truly be heard, not just listened to, because when everyone is upset, no one listens. They only defend, attack, seek to be right. But if you know how to wait, to measure, to hold what you have to say for the right moment, your voice will carry weight. Your words will calm instead of ignite. Marcus Aurelius said a calm soul doesn't rush. That strength lies in knowing when to act, not just in acting. So, the next time you feel the atmosphere is saturated, that everything's about to explode, don't let yourself be dragged in. Don't speak just to speak. Don't ADD to the noise. Stay silent. Breathe. Wait. Maybe what you need to say can be said later, when the storm passes. And if not, maybe it didn't need saying, because sometimes what you hold back at the right moment holds the most value. If you're ready to bring calm amid chaos, write in the comments, *today. I choose the silence that diffuses the storm. Let your pauses be bridges, and your silence the strength that balances the environment. 10. When you have nothing valuable to contribute. When you have nothing valuable to contribute, silence isn't defeat, it's a conscious choice. It's the recognition that not every moment needs your voice, and not every silence needs to be filled. But in a world that rewards visibility, many feel pressure to say something, anything, just to not be left out. And that's where the noise begins. People speak for the sake of speaking, opine without thinking, repeat empty phrases, just to not seem absent. But not speaking is better than filling space for the sake of it, because every word you say without intention wears down your voice, making you more noise than message, more filler than contribution. The ego pushes you to speak. Wisdom urges you to stay silent. The ego craves protagonism, to be heard even if it has nothing real to say, to be seen even if it's not contributing. Wisdom observes, knows there's no urgency to stand out, that the value of an intervention lies not in its frequency but its impact. Saying little, but with depth, is worth more than speaking constantly without direction. Contributing value isn't always verbal. Your body language, active listening, and full attention also communicate, also build. Sometimes, being present and not interrupting is already a form of respect and contribution. You're leaving space for others to express, for better ideas to emerge, for the moment to take shape, without your ego tainting it. Epictetus said nature gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. So listen twice as much as we speak. It's not an empty metaphor, it's a practical guide. Listening more lets you understand better, and understanding better prepares you to speak. Only when you have something truly worth hearing, speaking without purpose erodes your credibility. People remember how you made them feel, but they also remember when your words said nothing. Over time, those unnecessary interventions wear down how others perceive you, not because you made a grave mistake, but because you spoke when silence would have been wiser. Marcus Aurelius advised that our words be like a warrior's sword, precise, necessary, sharp within, calm without. You don't need to fill every meeting with your voice. You don't need to intervene in every debate. You don't need to respond to every comment. You need to know when your silence is your best contribution. Imagine a conversation where everyone's talking at once, each seeking to stand out, and suddenly someone stays silent, listens, nods respectfully, and when they finally speak, says something brief but essential. That person isn't just heard, they're valued, because their silence gave weight to their words, because their absence of noise was the space where clarity could enter. The next time you're in a conversation and feel the urge to speak just to not be left out, pause for a second. Ask yourself, does what I want to say really add something? Or am I just reacting to the void with noise? If the answer is number, stay silent, not out of fear or insecurity, but because you know your voice has value, and you won't wear it out on the irrelevant. If you're ready to make silence your ally, and your words an act of value, write in the comments, today. I choose to speak only when I have something valuable to say. Let your voice be clear and your silence intentional. 11. When you're about to criticize. when you're about to criticize. The wisest thing you can do is pause for a moment and examine where that impulse comes from. Not every judgment stems from truth. Often, criticizing says more about you than the other person. It says you're projecting an inner irritation, that something in you isn't at peace, that perhaps what you see in them is a mirror of what you haven't worked on in yourself. Criticizing can feel like a release, a form of justice or correction, but if it's not meant to build, you're destroying. Because if it's not constructive, it's destructive. There's no middle ground. Unsolicited criticism, the kind that doesn't aim to improve but to point out, often wounds more than it helps. It discredits, humiliates, distances, and a poorly chosen word can create a fracture time doesn't always heal. The Stoics knew that what we say must pass through the filter of virtue, that speaking without awareness is as reckless as acting without thinking. If you're going to criticize, first ensure that criticism can be received as help, not an attack. Otherwise, silence prevents unnecessary conflicts. Sometimes, staying silent isn't hiding, it's protecting the relationship. It's recognizing that the moment, tone, or message isn't right, that your need to speak shouldn't override the other person's need to feel respected. Marcus Aurelius said, "We shouldn't waste energy criticizing what we can't change." And often, what we're about to say doesn't even aim to change anything. It just wants to make clear we know better, would do better, are right. But the ego seeking external correction neglects its inner work. Ask yourself if what you're about to say is useful, good, and necessary. If it doesn't meet those three conditions, hold it back, not because you're afraid to express yourself, but because you have the wisdom to wait. Maybe what you're about to say is true, but will it improve something or just cause discomfort? Is it the right moment? Is the person ready to receive it? Are you saying it from a desire to help or a need to criticize? Epictetus taught that before speaking. We should ask ourselves if we're seeking to build or just impose. And that starts with honesty with ourselves. Criticism from the ego, even if well-worded, wounds. But criticism from love, even if firm, can heal. Imagine a scenario where you see a mistake, an attitude that bothers you, an action you think is wrong. The impulse is clear. Say something, correct, point out the flaw. But if you take a second to evaluate your intention, you might realize that criticism won't be heard, that you're not contributing anything. And if you choose silence, that silence will be more valuable than any word. Because you're choosing peace over judgment, prioritizing the relationship over correction, and above all, practicing the self-control that distinguishes someone who reacts from someone who decides. The next time you feel the urge to criticize, remember, words have weight, but also direction. They can lift or destroy. Choose well so that what you say is medicine, not poison. And if you can't be sure of that, stay silent. Because often that silence is the greatest act of respect you can offer. If you're ready to speak with purpose and stay silent with wisdom, write in the comments, *today, I choose for my words to heal, not wound. Let your judgment be guided by compassion, and your silence be by intelligence. 12. When someone speaks ill of another. When someone speaks ill of another in your presence, they're not just putting that absent person's reputation at stake. They're testing yours. Because in that moment, you have a choice that defines your character. Feed the conversation or distance yourself. It might seem harmless, even entertaining, to go along with gossip, but being complicit in gossip stains you too. even if you didn't start it, even if you don't add hurtful words. Your passive presence validates the poison, and what you listen to without intervening today could turn against you tomorrow. The Stoics taught that what you allow defines you too, that it's not enough to avoid doing wrong. You must also avoid being fertile ground for it. Staying silent is distancing yourself from toxicity, not out of fear, but out of integrity. You don't need to confront or become a judge, but you can choose not to participate. You can change the subject, stay silent, or simply walk away. That ACT, though small, is a statement of principle. It's a way of saying, asterisk, not with me, asterisk. And in a world where criticism is common currency, that silence is power. Your silence sets clear boundaries, boundaries others notice, others respect. Because someone who doesn't speak ill of others in their absence conveys trust in their presence. You're seen as someone who can't be swayed, someone trustworthy, and in the long run, that's worth more than any momentary complicity. Marcus Aurelius said that what isn't useful to the hive isn't useful to the bee. Speaking ill of someone absent builds nothing. It only weakens connections, fosters distrust, fuels suspicion. You decide if you want to be part of that energy or step away from it. Respect for others begins with your words. It's easy to talk about respect when everyone's present. What's hard and valuable is respecting someone who can't defend themselves, not because they're listening, but because you know loyalty is shown in absence too. Epictetus taught that we shouldn't speak ill of others, not even in jest, because every word leaves a mark on the speaker and the listener. And if you allow light judgment, gossip disguised as concern, or veiled mockery to occupy your space, you're building a fragile, untrustworthy, superficial environment. Imagine being in a group where someone starts speaking ill of another. You could join in, laugh, add an anecdote to reinforce what's said. But you have another option. Stay silent. Look calmly. Don't feed the fire. That gesture, though unspoken, speaks for you and often says more than any moralizing praise. Seneca said virtue doesn't need to announce itself. It's noticed, it's felt, and your ability to stay silent in the face of others' criticism is a mark of that virtue. You don't need to become a moral guardian. You just need to decide who you want to be when no one's watching, because it's in those everyday moments that your true strength is defined. The next time someone starts speaking ill of another in front of you, remember, you can be part of the circle, or you can be the boundary. You can feed the noise or represent calm. You can choose respect, even if no one celebrates it in the moment, because that respect, over time, becomes your shield. If you're ready to choose silence as an act of integrity, write in the comments, asterisk, today, I choose not to be complicit in others' judgment. Asterisk, let your words honor what your hurt values, even when no one else does. If you've made it this far, write in the comments, asterisk, be silent, think, and then act, asterisk. I invite you to subscribe, turn on notifications, and comment so platforms recognize that these videos are valuable for people like you. This motivates us to keep creating similar content in the future. I suggest checking out the last 2 videos we recommended. Thank you sincerely for your time and support. See you in our next adventure.